Today, I want to talk about the two sides of momentum. So, I've talked about momentum before, and it's related to, if you're in a rut, you have like no momentum, but if you're kind of on a roll and you're doing your thing, you have a lot of momentum. So, I just want to talk about the dual nature of this concept. So, you can apply this to work, graffiti, art, writing, anything you want. So, I know I've experienced a lot of times where I don't feel like I have a lot of momentum with my business stuff. I'll be working, but I won't be really working on the right stuff. And I'll kind of like not be very motivated, but I'll be putting in the hours, but not really as productive as I could be. Or there's been times, it's been a very long time since I've had this, but there's been times with my work where I've had very, very little momentum and I just wasn't getting hardly anything done. And the same thing with graffiti. I mean, I've been having a hard time getting momentum with that lately. Well, for a long time. It's on my mind all the time, but it's like the further away I get from painting, the easier it is to kind of put it off for even longer. And then I'll paint and I'll be all kind of hyped up and be down to paint again. Like I just painted twice. Not last weekend, but the weekend before that. So I painted 2 days in a row, which is pretty rare for me. But I could have tried to maintain that momentum and sort of done some other small things to kind of keep it going, but I didn't do that. So I'm kind of starting to sink back into the rut. And the problem with me is I just don't have a lot of free time. So I don't know, I guess it kind of relates. But as far as like kind of the writer's block idea, like, or artist's block, like where you sit down and you can't really do anything. This is a story I told on the episode I did some years back. And I was in college and I was stuck on a project and I was really starting to panic because you don't have a lot of time to do this. So I went next door and there was this dude, he's like this famous kind of like eclectic designer guy named Ed Fella. And I asked him for some advice and he said, just start, he didn't use the word momentum, but it was the same concept. He just said, just sit down and start making stuff. Don't worry about whether or not it relates or if it's good or not. Just sit down and start making. And the more you make, the more, you'll start getting into a groove. And I don't remember exactly how he said it, but he even said something like, and this kind of applies to design or maybe even like creative writing, where he was like, don't even worry about the concept. Just start making stuff. And then see if you can make some connections later to see if it kind of relates to your project. And then you can start playing off of that. So, as a graffiti writer, you could probably use this. Like if you're stuck in the same style and you're having a hard time getting past that, you could sit down and just start. But I'm actually getting ahead of myself here because I wrote down, this is one of the times I'm not just winging it. So I wrote down some shit. I kind of want to follow that. So let's go through this and see how that turns out. So let's start with the power of momentum. As I've already sort of defined it, it's just sort of, getting into the groove. There's a concept I read in the Good to Great book where he talks about business being like a flywheel, and I don't really know what a flywheel is, but I Googled it, but it's like a big heavy wheel. And as it's turning, it's so heavy, as it picks up momentum, it starts being able to turn on its own. And so he was relating business to this flywheel. And it's like, they went through all these businesses and they sort of evaluated, like, I think it was, I don't remember how many they did, but over a 15-year period, they evaluated these businesses that went from being just sort of normal businesses to like these exceptional businesses. And when they interviewed the people that were involved in that transformation, there was some interesting stuff. Like one of them was like, they didn't realize they were in a transformation at the time. They were just kind of, cliche, but putting one foot in front of the other and just kind of doing the work and making discoveries as they went. But they kind of described it as a flywheel effect. So it's like, a flywheel isn't going to start turning super fast just by one push. It's like a bunch of little pushes over and over and over again. And then eventually it just picks up so much momentum that it's just fucking going. And so you can think of momentum in the same way for any aspect of what you're trying to do. So if you start taking the steps one after the other and just, putting the reps in, you're eventually going to get that flywheel effect and the ideas will start flowing much faster and all that kind of stuff. So like I said in the beginning, this is one of the bullet points, is talking about how to start building positive momentum. And that's really simply just starting and kind of getting out of your own head. And don't sit around waiting for inspiration, because a lot of times, we won't do stuff. And this happens to me with this podcast all the time. I'll be sort of inadvertently sitting around waiting until I feel like recording an episode, rather than just sitting down and starting talking, because as that happens, I pick up momentum, and it happens relatively quickly most of the time. Sometimes it takes a while. I'm like, this is a fucking dud, like 10 minutes in, and then I'll start kind of getting my groove, and it turns out to be okay. So, instead of waiting for yourself to get inspired, you can just manufacture the momentum by just starting and making things. And so the next thing I want to talk about is the slippery slope of negative momentum. So kind of what I talked about in the beginning, as far as for me and graffiti, I'll go paint, I'll be all hyped up, and then, the next opportunity comes to paint and I don't take it. And then, that negative momentum, it creeps in the exact same way as the positive does. So the longer you don't do something, the more you're going to head down that direction. So you can apply that to everything. One of the things that I try to remind myself of is with exercise, because I find myself having a hard time keeping the momentum with that, because as soon as I kind of feel like I need to just do something every day. And when I miss a day, I'll start to kind of head down that negative momentum path. And so the next time I work out, maybe it won't be as intense or won't be as long. And then the negative momentum keeps picking up. So I've been trying to be really mindful of maintaining it while I have it. Cause as soon as you get like one good workout in and you feel real good, and like, I really like the taste of the protein shake that I have. So it's kind of a reward for completing that. And so I don't know if that kind of like creates a dopamine effect or something like that, but just even the act of doing a really good workout is a reward in and of itself. So that definitely helps pick up the positive momentum. But the negative one is it's a lot easier to kind of slip down that path. And especially like if you're trying to eat right, you could be on this like streak of like 7 days, 8 days, 15 days, whatever it is, of not eating any bullshit. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, I really feel like a donut. And you eat like 3-4 donuts. I'll say this for me, cause I do shit like this. I'll eat like 3-4 fucking donuts. And then I'm like, start to slip off the path. And I have to remind myself, like, look, this negative momentum is going to start picking up speed. So you got to just stay the fuck away from that stuff, And so when you think about the long-term effects of negative momentum, you can sort of be on this path where you're picking up some speed and you're kind of heading in the right direction. And then you get knocked off and you kind of go back in the other direction. Then you pick up speed again, and you keep doing this sort of yo-yo thing. And then next thing you know, like years have passed and you haven't really made much progress. You sort of like went back and forth and sort of stayed in the same place because of that. Whereas if you had maintained some positive habits while you had that, you might be much further along depending on whatever it is that you're trying to do. So there's definitely some long-term effects of allowing the negative momentum to come in. So a few strategies to reverse negative momentum. So one of the things that I've been saying all throughout this is just start. I mean, I think that's the most powerful thing you can do. And, and also sort of recognizing the signs of negative momentum. So if let's say it's like graffiti or whatever your artistic shit is, and you do something and then you feel all good and you feel like you got a little boost. And then the next time you have the opportunity to do it, you're like, nah, fuck it. I don't want to do that. Like that could be a sign that you're already starting to slip back into that. And you could apply that to your fitness or whatever else you want to apply that to. But I think it looks the same for me every time. As soon as you start to slip off, it's pretty noticeable. So if you're looking for it, you're going to see it. And so some of the strategies that I use to get back on, in addition to saying I'm just going to start, sometimes it's easier. Well, most of the time it's easier said than done. But I could go back to exercise. It's an easy one to talk about, but you can apply this to anything. So for me, if I'm on the negative path of not wanting to do my workouts and not really sticking to it, I could just say like, look, I don't want to miss today and I'm about to say, fuck it. So I'm just going to knock out an intense 5-10 minutes or something, like do those Navy SEAL burpees or something like that. Something that just really, maximizes that amount of time. And so that alone can be something that can help me kind of put your foot back on the gas, or maybe even like you missed your opportunity to paint and you start to feel like, fuck it, man. I'll worry about some other shit right now. We'll get back into that later. Maybe you could just do a quick sketch or something like that, or go somewhere and do a throwy, like just anything to kind of get you back up to speed. The other thing is like community support or getting involved in something, and you can use like social media for this or something like that. So if you have some negative momentum, like if you're a graph writer and you do go out and do a throwy or something, maybe post a reel of that, and then people kind of like commenting or something might get you hyped back up. You might be part of a group or some shit like that. I mean, there's probably other things that you could do to sort of, get some kind of community support. Another thing you can do, it's easier said than done, but like finding a mentor, and we've talked about this before, but if there's anybody willing to mentor you and you're willing to put in the work, that could be a mutually beneficial situation. So like the mentor, there's something that I believe, it's a law of the universe. They say it's like the law of reciprocity. And it's like, if you give, you receive. So like the mentor, it may seem like they're sort of being the one that's kicking down the knowledge or encouraging the person or whatever that mentorship looks like. But if you understand the law of reciprocity, and you believe it, I mean, you may not believe it, but I believe it, there's something out there that keeps track, the more you give, the more you get. So it is a mutually beneficial situation. So if you can find somebody that's willing to do that for you, that's always good. The other thing you could do is like, I don't see a lot of writers doing this, but I do see entrepreneurs do this, and they create these like accountability groups or accountability partners and say, hey, I'm going to, like maybe you have a homie that's like also trying to get back on track in any kind of aspect of their life. And you guys have that in common. You could create a little accountability partnership and say, all right, we're going to check in every Wednesday and say if we did the shit we're supposed to do or not. And then that could be very helpful. Like at Machine, I try to encourage everybody to read, especially like personal development stuff. And right now the whole team is reading The Untethered Soul. And then every Friday at 11:30, we meet up, and that's a really good accountability. Cause I know for me personally, like if I didn't do the reading, I'm not going to have anything to talk about. And so it's very helpful to have something like that. The other thing too is, as humans, we have a tendency to beat ourselves up about shit, like when we fall off track. So another thing that could be helpful to reverse negative momentum is just stop being such a dick to yourself and just, I don't really believe in a lot of this, like, I don't know. I hear the term like self-care and shit like that a lot. And I believe in that, obviously, but like, I don't know. Sometimes it seems like self-care is like somebody just saying fuck it for a while and doing some destructive shit to themselves. And I don't think that's a good idea. But at the same time, like if you fall off track, try to give yourself some grace and understand that shit happens to everybody. We all fall off track sometimes. And if you sit there beating yourself up about it, it's probably just going to sink you further and further into that hole. So give yourself a little grace and understand that if you just start doing the shit you need to do, you're going to start picking up speed and shit's going to turn around. So next I wanted to talk about maintaining the momentum in your creative journey or in your work or your exercise or whatever that is. One thing that I find helpful is to try to mix things up a little bit. Like I've been having a hard time doing that with graph. Like I say I'm going to mix it up and then I go to draw and then it doesn't really happen. But with exercise, I tend to try to keep things simple. I like certain things that are, you know, just more on the simple side. Like there's a Simple and Sinister workout that's basically kettlebell swings and Turkish get-ups, and I'll be like kind of all like, oh, I love this. I'm going to do this for a while. But then I get kind of bored and I start to slip. My momentum starts to slip back. And that's kind of like an indicator for me that I need to change some shit up. So I was doing that for a little while, and there's like some push-up, pull-up things that I like to do, different, you know, push-up positions like regular push-ups, diamond push-ups, and I can't remember the name. I think it's something like reverse planche or some weird shit where, I don't know. It's like you put your hands near your waist and you do a push-up. So it's it makes it more challenging. But anyway, and like if I do that, like, and I kind of stick to the same kind of things, I get bored. And then in addition, I mean, if you do this, well, the Simple and I'm getting all fucking rambly, but the Simple and Sinister is a full body thing. So it's not bad to do that, but there's certain things you're missing out on, I would think. I mean, I'm not a fucking fitness guy. What do I know? But mixing it up, you know, mixing it up can help you kind of get back on track. And definitely, obviously, mixing it up for graph and art and stuff. Like I actually have I saw some like drawing that's this dude did that I was like, I never even thought about graph like that. And so I might try to experiment with something like that. And if you give it time, you know, obviously when you mix it up, especially with the artistic shit, it's, unless you're like way more talented than me, it might look like shit the first few times you do it. And then it's the same shit. Like you'd keep at it and you'll pick up some speed and start feeling good about it. And then that might help you kind of get back into it. So the other thing, there's like reflection and adjustment. So a lot of times I'll be doing the same kind of shit. And like I have a few different things that I like, but I like to reflect on what I did and try to find like the little bits and pieces that maybe were working. And even if I do the same kind of style multiple times, there's always like some discovery, something there. So that reflection of looking back and looking at some of those things, and maybe you can expand off of those things and kind of push the boundaries. That always helps me kind of keep on track. So that's about all I got. So just to summarize, you know, some of the easy wins as far as regaining the momentum is just start. If you're really having a hard time getting yourself to start, try to find the bare minimum shit you can do. If it's fitness, do like just something quick, something that at least gets something in the books. You know, if you're having trouble with creative writing or art or something like that, like write one paragraph or a couple of sentences, do a sketch, go do a throwy somewhere. You know, those kind of things can really help kind of get the ball rolling again for you. Another thing I would encourage everybody to do is just take an honest, objective look at yourself and see what is your current state of momentum, and is it is that somewhere you want to be? Maybe you're moving full steam ahead and you're like, this is the best I've ever felt and I'm fucking kicking ass. You know, just maintain that shit. Or maybe you'll look at it and be like, you know what, I could be doing a lot better, and maybe I'll try some of this shit. All of those things I always find very helpful. So real quick, before I get out of here, just wanted to ask if you find any value in this fucking thing that we're doing here. Just, I would really appreciate it if you'd share it. I don't ask shit like that very often because I find it kind of annoying when people do that, and I'm not going to run any ads or any of that kind of stuff. So like, I don't want to interrupt the flow of this shit. So, you know, it would be really helpful if you do like this, please share it. And I wanted to give a shout out to a writer named Dunn. Dunn is Bad News on Instagram. I think he shared every single episode the entire time we've been doing this. So since 2020, this dude's shared every episode. So I don't expect anybody to do that. That's like way, way above and beyond. But if you like it, throw it up on your stories, tell somebody, do some shit like that. I would really appreciate it. I will see you all soon. Appreciate you.
appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.